As a wise woman once said, you know what causes bad luck? It's bad conduct. Is it possible to be abandoned by one's own luck? Tonight, we find out in Native American magic defeats the Pharaohs' curse on Ominous and Grim. I'm Mr. Ominous.
And I'm Dr. Grim, covering shocking histories
and darkest mystery.
From the undeniable facts
to personal experience, our channel covers all things ominous
and grim.
Good evening, friends. Mr. Ominous here. Tonight, we examine that phenomenon called luck. Where does luck come from, and why does it go sour, especially when we need it? Can our actions, good or bad, dramatically change our personal luck? Does a rabbit's foot or a four-leaf clover really keep bad luck from striking? Listen to this story of a trio of luckless individuals as they struggle to right a terrible wrong. Or just get rid of the evidence any way they possibly can. The following dramatized story is amazingly and absolutely true, but the names have been changed because the persons involved insisted on remaining anonymous. If you're a fan of shocking histories and dark mystery, find our next episode on your platform by following this podcast, sharing this episode with your friends, and giving us a review. Join our community of avid listeners at ominousandgrim.com for bonus content and benefits. That's OMINOUSANDGRYMM.com. And now, back to our story. Marty, a professional psychic, glanced quickly over her appointment calendar for the day of October 25th, 1997. Just a few days before Halloween. Just another ordinary day that's about to turn strange. Marty descends from a long line of psychics and had worked as an intuitive counselor for many years. She regularly used the tarot cards, numerology, crystal ball, astrology, and plain old-fashioned psychic intuition to offer advice and to solve problems for her clients. Today represents a typical workday for Marty. After showering and dressing, she fed her cat and dog, ate a piece of cheese toast, and drank a cup of coffee. Then, ready to begin greeting clients, she strolled into her front room of her home she uses for her readings. She sat down before a long table draped with a black velvet and lit a large white pillar candle. It glows softly against the deep purple walls of the room. Glittery golden curtains cover the windows, and deep and plush purple velvet chairs sat against the walls. Reaching into a drawer, she brought out her favorite incense and touched a match to it. Soon the fragrant coils of smoke drifted lazily towards the ceiling, and Marty passed several decks of cards, one by one, and laid the decks before her on the table. Her first client was an overdressed woman in 6-inch heels named Linda. She had already sobbed half of her makeup off before demanding to know if she should leave her husband. For 3 weeks, he had indulged in a passionate affair with her son's soccer coach. The bright colors of the tarot cards glowed against the black velvet tablecloth, but remained a bit vague on the subject. So did the astrology chart Marty produced on her computer screen. Marty lit another candle and turned to her crystal ball. In the depths of the shimmering crystal, she saw the answer clearly. The soccer coach, a slender, befuddled Gemini, had definitely lost interest in the affair. A rude shock awaits Linda's husband in a few days, when the soccer coach tosses him aside. Linda then dried her tears and went to the restroom to clean off her ruined makeup. She came out smiling broadly and gave Marty a big tip on top of her usual fee. After Linda left, Marty heaved a sigh of relief. It was always nice to be able to give the client good news. After 2 more clients, Marty ate a quick tomato and lettuce salad for lunch. She gave the cat and dog fresh water and scheduled more appointments for readings during the coming week. After lunch, Marty lit a fresh stick of incense and waited for her next client to arrive. He was late. A storm was brewing outside. She could hear the wind as it began to blow hard and lightning flashed nearby. Suddenly, her client, Anthony, flung open the door and strode into the room. When he collapsed into a chair across from her, Marty stared at the beads of sweat running down his face and the big bruise on his forehead. "What's wrong?" she asked. "And why are you so late?" "You've got to help me," he cried, slapping both palms down on the velvet-covered table with a loud bang. Marty flinched. "What's going on?" she asked. "Terrible stuff. Horrible," he cried, shaking his head. Marty poured a cup of tea, some chamomile to calm him down. "Tell me more," she said, as she passed him the cup. Outside, the thunder boomed and rain lashed at the windows. Over that cup of tea and a lot of questions, the story finally spilled out. It seems Anthony had suffered quite a long string of bad luck. He swore Marty wouldn't believe how many bad things had happened to him. As a matter of fact, that's why Anthony arrived late for his appointment today. He cut himself badly trying to peel an apple for lunch. Then afterwards, he walked outside and saw a tree had fallen over and smashed the front end of his car. Shocked by the sight of his crushed car, he tripped and fell over a child's wagon he swore hadn't been on his lawn a moment before. "And I don't even have kids, so why would that wagon be in my front yard?" he asked, rubbing the purplish bruise on his forehead. Marty bit her lip. Anthony was usually such a happy fellow. What happened to him? Had he been cursed? She reached for a pack of tarot cards and began to shuffle. "You don't need the cards," Anthony said grimly. "I can tell you why I'm having all this bad luck. The reason I got fired from my job, and my dog ran away last week, and the reason my wife is threatening to leave me." Marty stared at him. She slowly laid the cards down on the table. "What's the reason?" she asked. "It's some kind of Pharaoh's curse." "The curse of what?" Marty asked. A look of confusion crossed her face. This surely must have been some kind of joke, or maybe even a delusion. "I've been cursed by the pharaohs of ancient Egypt," Anthony stated. He looked straight into Marty's eyes. "I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating." She swallowed hard. "How in the world did this happen?" she asked. "I did something incredibly stupid," he said. Leaning back in his chair, he proceeded to lay out the hard facts. It seemed Anthony had a friend, Tom, an older, well-to-do gentleman that enjoyed traveling. His latest adventure had taken him to the dusty land of Egypt, where he had spent 2 glorious weeks sailing up and down the Nile and visiting all the interesting sights. He had also toured the famous pyramids of Giza on the last day of his holiday. It was inside one of those pyramids that the story got really interesting. Even though Tom knew the curse of the pharaohs, and that he could face imprisonment by the local authorities, he managed to somehow chip off a cracked piece of the pyramid's stone interior and hid it in his pocket. His theft was not discovered, and he smuggled the stolen piece of the pyramid home in his luggage. He laughed to think he had gotten away with such a thing. However, the trouble began even before Tom got back to his hotel. First, he was kicked by an angry camel on the street. This knocked him to the ground and he got a mouthful of dust, plus it left a good-sized bruise on his ribs. On the way to his hotel, his taxi broke down and he had to rush to pack it for his flight home. However, entering his hotel room, Tom discovered he didn't have to worry about packing anymore because most of his possessions had been stolen. The thieves took all of the expensive designer luggage. He finally borrowed a small plastic trash bag from the desk clerk to pick up a few remaining belongings. While doing so, he was stung on the hand by a poisonous insect that made him feel nauseous and his whole arm swelled. Having no time to complain to the hotel management or even see a doctor, and being in a huge hurry, he left. During the flight home, the air conditioning failed during the flight, and the sultry temperature inside the plane became unbearably hot. And if that wasn't enough, the heat made him vomit. Some fellow passengers didn't make it to the restroom in time, causing a horrible smell to linger in the air. Back home, things did not improve. He couldn't get a taxi at the airport. When he phoned for one, it was 2 hours late and with no explanation. His arm had swollen up from the insect sting and was very painful. And that was only the beginning. Every day brought a whole new set of disappointments, frustrations, accidents, and even fights with his friends and family. Worn down by all these occurrences and feeling sick at heart, Tom called up his old friend Anthony. He confessed what he'd done in the land of Egypt. When he heard the whole creepy story, Anthony was horrified. "You've been cursed," he cried out. Then Tom asked Anthony for a favor he regretted ever since. Rain poured from the sky all evening. Anthony felt tired from a long day of work and fighting traffic and all that bad weather. His wife, Lucy, would not be home from her yoga class and dinner out with the girls until 10. He turned off the TV. As he reached to turn on the water for his shower, the phone rang. Sighing heavily, Anthony walked into the adjoining bedroom to answer it. He picked up his phone from the nightstand. Hello? Tony, can you hear me? It was his friend Tom, sounding hysterical. The sound of rushing wind and rain sounded loud in the background. I'm here, Anthony said loudly. Will you take this chunk of stone from me, please? I can't take all this bad luck. I'm going crazy. I know that damn stone is causing it. Anthony was shocked. Tom sounded so desperate. Anthony, please help me, Tom begged. God, how I wish I'd never taken it in the first place. The pyramid stone? I don't know. But Tom interrupted. If you will take this stone, you probably will not be affected. I'm the one that chipped it off the wall. You didn't do anything wrong. Anthony seriously considered the matter for a few moments. Did he really believe in all this curse business? Didn't it sound like a silly story? And after all, the stone was an authentic piece of Egyptian pyramid. It would be a kind of cool thing to own. On the other hand, the object in question had obviously caused Tom quite a bit of heartache, or had it. Was it not just a string of negative circumstances, or could it just be caused by a guilty conscience? That's probably it. Just plain old-fashioned guilt. I guess I'll take it, Anthony said after a few moments. I'll come by tomorrow sometime, around noon, to pick it up. Don't worry, I'll bring it to your house. I'll be there in a few minutes. Tom yelped and slammed down the phone. Anthony stood in the middle of his bedroom, feeling strangely uneasy. What if he made a lethal bargain? What if that piece of rock was as wicked as Tom had said? Maybe he should not answer the door when Tom arrived. About 10 minutes passed and the doorbell rang. Anthony walked to the door and saw Tom through the glass and felt shocked at how thin and pale his friend looked, even with his desert-acquired tan. Anthony slowly opened the door, and Tom quickly stepped in, dripping water, and immediately dropped the stone on a nearby table. Thank you, old friend. I'll see you later, he said. He quickly turned and sprinted to his car and sped away into the rainy night. Anthony stood in the open doorway staring after him. Then he turned and glanced at the stone. It looked very white against the dark wood of the table. It didn't look sinister in any way. He closed the front door, then he turned and approached the stone slowly, then reached out and touched it. A sharp tingle shot through his whole arm, and he jerked his hand away. Suddenly, Anthony felt absolutely exhausted. He thought he'd forget the shower and nap on the couch until his wife got home. Hours later, he woke up with his wife standing over him, hands on her hips, and frowning. Did you just get home? He asked groggily. It's morning. You've been asleep all night here on the couch. Anthony sat up slowly and rubbed his eyes. He couldn't believe he'd slept that long. He still felt so lethargic, like he hadn't slept at all. I'll go cook breakfast, his wife said. And so it started just like that for Anthony. All the bad luck came knocking on his door. Since that night, he suffered such severe fatigue he could hardly function. He couldn't think, he couldn't work. It didn't matter that he never even touched the pyramid stone again. He left it lying on the table where Tom dropped it that rainy night. His wife would occasionally dust around it, but she never asked what it was or where it came from. Anthony continued to lay on the couch all hours of the day and night. His wife insisted he visit the doctor to find out what was wrong, but many medical tests later, the doctor could find nothing at all. The days stretched into weeks. Every time Anthony stirred from the couch, his head would throb, and he felt sick to his stomach. He couldn't see well enough to shave and grew a beard. His hair grew shaggy and unkempt. Even the family dog refused to come near him. Eventually, Anthony lost his well-paying job. His wife threatened to leave him, but he couldn't focus on anything long at all before the crushing fatigue overcame him. He missed his wife. He still loved her very much. Now in this room, Anthony glanced over at Marty. Her eyes looked wide with shock. What Anthony had just told her was indeed beyond belief. I've come to ask if you will take the stone. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a dusty-looking piece of white rock and placed it on the black velvet. You are a professional psychic, he said earnestly. I thought perhaps you would know how to tame this damn stone. Marty stared at the stone with great curiosity. She wondered if she had the psychic strength then master that stone. It supposedly carries the curse of the Pharaohs. She also thought it would be really cool to possess an authentic piece of a pyramid of Egypt. And she didn't even have to brave the rigors of international travel to attain it. It would just be hers for just saying yes. The stone lay on the black velvet beside the brightly colored tarot cards and gleamed pure and white in the flickering candlelight. Yes, I'll take it, she said quietly. Anthony stood up. He swayed unsteadily on his feet, taking several large bills from his wallet, and he threw them down on the table. I wish you good luck, he said. You're gonna need it. He turned and strode out the door. A few days passed quietly. Marty drew a deep sigh of relief. Maybe the stone's curse would not work on her. However, suddenly her luck took an unexpected sharp turn for the worse. Was it because of the stone? Marty's young puppy ran away. He had escaped under the back fence and disappeared one afternoon. Her cat got sick, and the vet bills would make a millionaire shudder. Her SUV broke down in the middle of a busy freeway, and she was sideswiped by another car. But the worst was yet to come. A couple nights later, she woke up and smelled smoke. Rushing downstairs, she discovered one of her candles had burnt dangerously low, and the sparks had ignited the black velvet tablecloth, and flames danced all over the tabletop. Tearing off her favorite nightgown, she beat out the fire, ruining the garment and burning her hands. Marty dropped into a chair, sighing with relief. Hurrying through the dark house, she stubbed one of her toes bloody on one foot, and she winced. That stupid stone, she muttered. The smoke caused her to cough, and she shot an irritated glance over at the curio cabinet where it sat. I've got to get rid of this damn thing. She sat, considering her options. When morning came full of sunshine, Marty had made a definite plan. She didn't intend to pass the cursed stone on to some other poor unsuspecting soul and cause them bad luck. That would only bring her negative karma. Instead, she called an old friend of hers, a Native American Shaman, and explained the situation in detail to him. Bury it, advised the shaman, and do it quickly. Let the earth neutralize that powerful and ancient negative energy. Marty thanked him and hung up the phone, determined to act on the shaman's advice immediately. Using a pair of tongs, she placed the stone in a cloth bag, being careful not to touch it. She then took it into her garden. With the shovel, she dug a deep, deep hole and dropped the stone into it. She sprinkled the bag carefully with a lot of salt and said a prayer of protection. As she covered the stone with the dark, rich soil, she suddenly felt a wave of peace overtake her. By the time she finished the task, she hummed a happy tune. In the following weeks, Marty's dog returned home and her sick cat got well. She bought another black velvet cloth for her table, and her life rapidly returned to normal. However, on a more sad note, she heard a few months later that Tom, the gentleman who had originally taken the stone from the pyramid, had been found dead in his bed one morning by his partner. He died in his sleep of a heart attack. If you've enjoyed this episode of Ominous and Grim and want more shocking histories and dark mystery, don't forget to follow this podcast, share this episode to your friends, and review us on your favorite platform. Finally, sign up at ominousandgrim.com for members-only benefits. That's OMINOUSANDGRYMM.com. And until next episode, don't look behind you.